At this point, we've come to the portion of the meeting for public commentary and inquiry. If anyone would like to come to the microphone, please state your name and your address.
Good evening, my name is Kathy Wilson, 20 Beechwood Drive.
Good evening. Good evening.
I'd like to comment this evening on this rather stunning letter from Mr. Caffrey that was published in the February 17th edition of the MorristownGreen.com and the February 23rd edition of the Newsbee. As the scores of comments in response to this letter clearly demonstrate, I'm not the only one who's concerned about the views Mr. Caffrey has expressed in this letter, as well as in your public comments of the December 21st meeting. It does not inspire confidence in how our local government works when a sitting member of this committee thinks it's okay to publicly describe his constituents as snowflakes and as children wanting trophies, and to publicly dismiss their concerns as unimportant and noise. It's hard to believe that it's necessary to do this, but I feel a need to remind you, Mr. Caffrey, that citizen participation...
Ms. Wilson, I want you to address your remarks to the mayor, and I don't want this to become a bully pulpit for an attack on any of the members of this committee.
I'm responding to what was stated in this letter.
I understand that. I'm not so sure this is the forum for that. The response could be in the public media, which you probably already have arranged in any event, but I don't want it to become one-on-one between you and Mr. Caffrey. Address Mayor Sisler with your remarks, and please be brief and succinct, because I'm not going to give you a lot of latitude.
I have 5 minutes, right?
Proceed.
Thank you. I find it necessary to state that citizen participation is a hallmark of our democracy, and that it's a job of elected officials excuse me, to show some basic modicum of respect for the citizens they represent, even those they disagree with. Another concern this letter raises, which parallels a national concern, is when leaders show a complete disregard for facts and think it's okay to perpetuate falsehoods as if no one will notice or care. This letter includes more factual inaccuracies than I have time to highlight here, but I would like to comment on 2 that directly affect me. This letter states that the ethics complaint I filed against one of the people on this committee was immediately dismissed without merit.
I'm going to stop you. Whatever the statement you're about to make regarding the Ethics Board, Ethics Committee, and whatever appeared in the public media concerning that was in itself out of order. I know you feel compelled to comment on it, but I don't want to have any statements in the record regarding any ethics complaints or things of that nature.
Mr. Mills, there was a public meeting held on the ethics complaint.
That doesn't alter the impropriety of what came out. Right? It should not.
There were also statements made in the public record that are false.
I'm asking you to please move on with your statement beyond commenting on the ethics matter.
I feel like this, I'm very uncomfortable with this. It doesn't seem right to me.
Well, I'm equally uncomfortable with you proceeding to opine on matters that were handled by the Municipal Ethics Committee, because they are...
So it's okay for Mr. Caffrey to make false statements about me, and it's not okay for me to answer them?
I didn't say it was. I think that I'm not commenting on... Personally, I would have advised perhaps Mr. Caffrey differently regarding that matter, but I wasn't asked. And I'm just, now it's come up in a public forum, and I'm telling you that the way the Ethics Committee rules and regulations operate are that these matters are confidential.
move on. This is one of several incidents that remind me of my professional experience as an educator. When I was a school administrator, if I were to stand before a group of parents and other members of the public and tell them that their concerns are unimportant, they don't matter, they're just noise, I guarantee I would have been subject to reprimand, if not dismissal. When I was a teacher, if I were to hold a private conference with someone and engage in a nonstop barrage of personal insults, attacks, and false accusations, I guarantee, at a minimum, there would have been pushback in the form of a complaint. And rightly so. The main takeaway I get from this letter and from other incidents that have occurred is that there are some members of this committee who hold strong negative stereotypes of people on the other side of the political aisle and who think it's acceptable while acting in their official capacity to act on those stereotypes and directly and overtly insult the people they're supposed to represent. This is wrong. And when it happens, it is appropriate to call it out for what it is, unacceptable. That is exactly what I did, and in both cases, it was the right thing to do. I'd like to ask about another statement that was contained in this letter, and I quote, let me phrase it this way. Perhaps, can I ask Mr. Caffrey to explain what he believes I was being obstructionist about? I have no idea.
This is your opportunity to make a comment. It is not an
Okay, then in that case, I will quote from the letter. In yet another example of far-left vitriol, Ms. Wilson emailed her constituents and asked them to attend the planning board meeting and be an obstructionist over an issue that once again didn't go her way. Once again, no trophy. Only in Morris Township is encouraging people to attend planning board meetings and get educated on the master plan review process, viewed by some of our elected officials as some kind of conspiracy. The notion that I was trying to obstruct something is ridiculous. It's just not true. And I respectfully ask that this statement be acknowledged for what it is, false. I would hope the other members of this committee would concur that a basic responsibility of the job of serving as an elected official is to respect citizen participation, not demean it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Lee Goldberg, 10 Arrowhead Road. Good evening. A couple of questions on the agenda regarding the, I guess they are ordinances for introduction. The last three, 90-17, 91-17, and 92-17. The first two regarding the surety bonds for the Honeywell tract.
The resolution.
I'm sorry, the resolutions. So, in reading those, is there a distinct, are there two line items there? Because one is for, I'm not sure what a POA is, maybe that's professional office space, so one is for the corporate part of the site and the other is for the residential part of the site? Is that accurate?
Different lot.
I'm sorry?
Different lot numbers.
Well, there's different lot numbers, but they also share common lot numbers of 7 and 8. So there's a commonality among the two, but then there's also a distinction. Is that, so I'm not sure what, I'm not a finance guy, I'm not sure what surety bonds are, the purpose of them. Could someone just elaborate what these resolutions are?
Difference between POA and the residential.
Oh. I don't have the actual plan in front of me, but certain of the improvements are common among all of the entities that will occupy the site, and certain of them are not. So hence, that drives the need for the 2 restoration bonds. That may not be specific enough to answer your question, but I didn't bring my Honeywell file.
That's okay, so the performance restoration bonds are something that are acquired from Honeywell, or?
Required by us to make sure that Honeywell does what it promised to do in terms of restoring everything the way the township wants it put back together.
Okay, thank you, just wasn't sure what those referring to were meant, thank you. And then on 92-17 for the award for the open contract for special counsel for services to, I guess, Noel Shablek. Is that affiliated with a particular piece of litigation, or is that just for extra counsel services beyond what Mr. Mills can provide, or?
He was a hearing officer for disciplinary matter.
Okay, so that's just sort of a one-time.
Hope so.
Okay, I hope so too. All right, thank you. And regarding the efforts, first of all, the 1740 Live, thank you, Mayor Sisler, for providing that. It's very helpful. So I appreciate anything that can add to increased communication and transparency of what's happening in the township is great. Also on the Facebook page, I noticed, residents will query with questions, whatever. There is a response that is generated. It sort of just comes from the generic Morris Township name. Is there one individual who's responsible for responding to those? Is it the committee members themselves, or who do those responses come from? I know it says Morris Township, but that's sort of, is it?
We have 2 people handling it. One is our webmaster that works in-house, and we also have a volunteer that does the Facebook page for us.
Okay, great. Well, we're doing a fantastic job on both of those, so I appreciate it. And I guess my last comment will be regarding this public commentary portion of the meeting. I'm a little concerned when I heard Ms. Wilson trying to make public commentary and sort of being squelched by Mr. Mills because of your uncomfortableness with the topic at hand. I'm not an expert on how Robert's rules in these meetings are to be conducted and what's appropriate, but I believe public commentary is sort of, if she wants to get up here and read the Constitution for 5 minutes, that's within her prerogative, correct? Is there sort of a free speech issue there, or how is that actually interpreted?
I guess in a sense, one of the hats I wear would be, to a degree, Sergeant at Arms. I tried to only restrict that portion of the commentary that I perceived as dealing with a matter that was handled by the Morris Township Ethics Committee. That's all. Ms. Wilson made the rest of her comments, and I think she made her points abundantly clear.
Okay, but the ethics, the topic of the ethics complaint, I think she was basically responding to something that was put into the media by a member of this committee. So am I to understand your interpretation of that information being shared by a member of the committee with the public in a media sense was sort of inappropriate?
No, please don't
That's why I'm asking.
shadow box with me. I'm only telling you that based on my understanding of the way these ethics matters are handled, commentary is best kept out of the public record. I don't even know what remarks Ms. Wilson is responding to because I didn't read them or undertake them, nor do I want you to read them to me.
I'm not going to read. I don't have them in front of me.
I'm just saying to you that anything that has the word ethics in it, whether it be something leveled against a lawyer or another professional or a member of this committee, it is a matter that is confidential unless there's some sort of adverse or a decision that would impact the charged party's duties or position. So, for example, if someone makes an ethics complaint against an attorney, it's hush-hush until the matter is over, all right? And even then, if there's no finding, if you will, of an issue, then it's not made public. And that's the way we handle our ethics committee here.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I was just, again, this public commentary portion, I was understanding that it's sort of a free speech issue, but I guess you have as Sergeant of Arms the right to sort of stop or put a halt to things that you feel are not appropriate in this forum. I appreciate the explanation.
I do what I can do.
All right.
Alan Johnson, 15 Deer Chase Road, Morris Township. Full disclosure, my wife Louise Johnson is a township committee member, and I think it's because of that fact that I feel compelled to get up and maybe make a comment in response to the questions and issues raised by Mr. Goldberg and Mrs. Wilson. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but it would seem to me that the purpose of having the open discussion would be to discuss matters related to township business and perhaps decisions made by the township committee. I could use my 5 minutes to tell you how I spent my summer vacation, but I don't think that that would be very relevant to the operation of township's business. And so it's my view that any discussion that's related to an individual, albeit if that individual is a member of the township committee, would not be appropriate unless that conduct was sanctioned or supported by the township committee as a whole. I would ask that each of us, when we take our time at the podium, be aware of the distinction between individual conduct and decisions that are made and promulgated by the township committee as a whole, based on the majority vote of those members. Thank you very much.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Committee. Rob Walden, Jersey Central Power and Light, 300 Madison Avenue, Morris Township, New Jersey. Good evening. We've released our capital budget for 2017. It's $359 million. That's a little less than last year, but it's about $100 million more than it was in 2015 and 2014. I think the biggest highlight of that budget is $11 million for new communication equipment, which will allow us to switch circuits and restore folks remotely, which will decrease the duration of outages and also get folks back in the power a lot sooner, which I know is certainly important to everyone. And I just want to report that. Also, we're making progress on the Normandy neighborhood. We are waiting for the snow to melt to get out there and complete that circuit tie. Once that happens, we'll also change the phasing of the customers out there, so it'll be a little more evenly distributed, and hopefully that'll get done in the next few weeks. And as always, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir.
Very much. Have a good evening, everyone.
Move to close the public portion.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.